Guys, I mean, this is a historic moment. I can't tell you how excited I am and so proud that we're premiering I guess the legal version of this film. It's been, this film has been a unicorn to me for so long. I've read about it. First off, I'm the biggest fan of Assayas. To me, he's just one of the greatest filmmakers in the world. Every film he makes, every single one is a poem. Every film blows my mind. I just can't wait. He's like one of the few filmmakers. I just can't wait for his next film, just constantly, for years and years. But this one, I remember reading about, way back, and I was like, God, I have to see this. It's a teenage movie. It sounds very personal. They're all very personal. But we'll talk about just how autobiographical maybe after. So the fact that it's now available, I think they cleared up the rights. We'll talk about some of that. You can't really make a film and not get all the rights to the music, maybe. But so it's just such an honor to have. I met him in person a few years ago in Paris, and I was like, you have to come to Austin. We have to get you to Austin. So here we are 3 years later. I want to thank Holly for all the work she did in making this happen. And I'm just so happy it worked out and that we have Olivier here with us for a few days, showing some movies. So come back and see all the others, and just so thrilled that he's here. So join me in welcoming Olivier Assayas. And
Thank you. No, thank you so much for your very, very kind words. It's I'm because what Richard did not say is that when he told me you should go to Austin, I told him anytime, whenever you want, you just tell me, because I think what he's doing here in Austin is so great, and and also what he didn't say is that when we met, we discussed movies like we had known each other forever, because I think we've been doing more or less the same thing, and we had the same relationship to filmmaking and to modern filmmaking in two different ambience. But I think we have both been trying to explore we've been experimenting with movies that question how movies can reflect the world, can reflect inner worlds also, and I've been of course watching all the movies of Richard that opened in France, and I've been fascinated by his work. So it was so great to finally meet and finally feel we have so much in common, and I think what we have the most in common is those two movies we did like 6 months apart. I think that Richard did his a little before mine. That was Dazed and Confused, and I remember after shooting Cold Water and finishing Cold Water, a few months later, I saw Dazed and Confused. Oh my God, it's not exactly the same film, but it certainly comes from the same place. And I think that I'm sure we will discuss more of that. I'm extremely happy that this movie that has been unavailable because of some legal horror story, it's been a burden. The idea that this film was not available was extremely painful, because it's a movie I care very deeply about. And finally we managed not only to get it out of the clutches of the system, and we restored it. So I think, and because we shot the film at the time in Super 16, and we shot it in 4 weeks with like zero money. You have no idea. It looks better, once we go back to original negative and do this 4K restoration. I think it was, for me the first time I made a movie that was like openly autobiographical, where I was using, but it's more of a poetic autobiography to put it that way. But I will be extremely happy and honored to discuss it with Richard after the screening. So thank you all to be here, and I hope you enjoy the film. Thank you.
Welcome back to the stage, Olivier. Oh man, amazing! What does it feel like to go back and revisit a film that you made so long ago and having it being treated kind of, at least around here, as new?
It was not loud enough.
Oh, it needed to be. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. It was
It's
okay.
pretty loud when it needs to be. That's such an exhilarating sequence. I can't think of anything I've seen in cinema more exhilarating than the Creedence Clearwater,
Yeah.
the fire scene. That's amazing.
Yeah. No, I remember when it's we shot it. I mean, it how can I say? The shoot was as an adventure in a certain way, because we had so little time, and
how
it
many
was
days
so
again?
cold.
Did you say how many?
4 weeks. We shot it in 20 days.
20 days, 4 weeks,
23 days, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
23 days. And but it was like freezing cold. It was it was really
You could feel it.
and we were shooting at night in the winter with those kids smoking. I mean, they were smoking grass in and out of the shots.
Right.
And and at some point there was and I kind of invented the scene on it's like the songs became the screenplay in a certain way for the scenes, and even the bonfire, I imagined the big bonfire, but I didn't imagine that that big, so when I had a special effects guy who showed me what they could do, and at some point they showed me we can try also really big flames, and say, well, great, cool, that's how.
Let's do it.
And all of a sudden I realized that the kids were forgetting about the camera when the fire was burning, because there was something much stronger than the camera, so they were like magnetized by it, and so I could film stuff that they were going through. They were not acting.
So real.
And when like the next day, because or 2 days later, I remember watching the daily. At that time, we used to, after the shoot,
you really didn't know totally what you had until you
had
get it back from the lab.
We went to the lab. I mean, actually, to a screening room in Paris, and they watched the dailies, and I said, I just wow, I was just surprised by what had actually been captured by the camera.
When you can't wait to get to the editing room to jump into your footage like that. It's amazing. Were they? Did you have music playing on the set? Any at all? They seem to be in rhythm when they're dancing. Or was that just a tribal? I'm
not sure. Maybe. Maybe because I knew exactly which song fitted where.
Okay.
So
that was sort of scripted.
Absolutely.
It feels
absolutely.
that way.
Absolutely. It was. There's a whole dramaturgy of the music, really. It's when it goes louder, softer, faster. When we turn it off.
I love the way. You have those high points, and then that Nico. It's like a dirge, like a mournful morning after. That Nico song is so. It fits the mood so well. But I just love the. The first part is just so much captured just so well that just that pure alienation between them and all the adult figures, whether it's a teacher or you really kind of put our faces in that for a while until we get to have those exhilarating little moments when they're away.
When they're by themselves. There was this
the freedom you feel to get away from the oppression. And it's not like they're horrible people. You just can't. It's such a sad scene when he's showing him the Caravaggio and explaining how he felt, and then there's just no, you can't. There's no connection there. It's like
it's really because those years were also about what we called generation conflict. And it's something that we forget about.
Here they call it
the
generation gap.
Generation gap in French. In French, conflit génération.
Right.
Generation gap, but it's not just the gap. It's like the antagonism.
Oh yeah.
And it was very present. It was very present, and there was this notion that freedom, whatever, was possible when kids were by themselves.
Yeah, you had to get away from
Yeah,
that to have any chance at it. Well, what about these two films together today? I don't know how many of you saw both films. Yeah, it's quite it's quite a double feature. These two from that period, and yet you filmed them years apart.
Years apart, you know, it's like I felt I had to revisit it because for somehow this film is more like Cold Water is more like a punk rock take on the 70s, right? You know, it's not the gentle side of the 70s. It's like the mean side. It's the mean side of the 70s. And I thought I had this. I always had in the back of my mind that I was being also a bit unfair to the times, because there was also something beautiful and bright and luminous about it, and it was so much about the counterculture and the you know, like the free press,
and the specific politics
and the politics, and you know, but there was something beautiful about it, and I remember, you know, how much I ultimately I owe to the art of that period, and somehow I thought I needed to give Cold Water some kind of companion piece that would you know, just show also the beauty of it.
So the right order would have been show these in
the opposite order.
You watch these backwards. Those are very
but it's fine. I mean, I mean, you know, it works both ways. I mean, they complement each other. But one is more like, I suppose that you know, it's one is abstract, meaning this one is purely abstract, whereas Something in the Air is more impressionist.
Yeah, well, I can see how you must have felt like you just had some unfinished business with this time in your life and in the cultures. It's pretty transformational, you know, worldwide, this moment. But we'll talk about that more Sunday, because it permeates so much of your work.
Yes, of course. But I think, you know, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think when you practice an art, there's something that kind of freezes when you're a teenager. You know, you always come back to something that has to do with your teenage year, your experience, you know, of discovering the world as a teenager. It kind of informs whatever you end up doing.
It's intense because it's all so new. You know, everything hurts so much, and it's so exhilarating too. It's also fresh, and you look back and just go, oh, God, you know, just so. On one hand, just stupid and irresponsible, and, you know, the way you're rebelling and trying to find your freedom is almost dangerous. You know, and
it's always dangerous. It's always dangerous because you have no notion of the limits at that age.
I know, you're finding them, and it's crazy. I just love it when he steals the albums. You know, what better to steal, and it ends up such a disaster. I don't know. Feels very real. So real. Oh man, just love the music so much, man. We get that first hint in Roxy Music when they're just tuning it in. I just felt that some metaphor for, like, okay, there's a world out there. If you can just if you can just tap into it, get your antenna correct, you can be.
But you know, it's you know, it's music, you know? Exactly. But, you know, but you know, it's more or less the way it was in France. I mean, when I was growing up in the countryside.
Really?
So it means in more or less in a very similar environment. I mean, actually in that environment, I shot a lot of it where I grew up. You know,
so
that's
your home.
It's pretty close.
Town.
Yeah,
Was that your school?
It's my school.
You went to that school?
Oh yes, absolutely.
You can feel it. Can't you just feel it? Like, oh God, this is where it happened. He was sentenced to years imprisonment at this place.
But you know, it's if you wanted to have access to whatever was going on in terms of music, it was not on French TV. There were like two channels or three channels. So the only way to listen to what was happening, meaning rock and roll, I mean, meaning prog rock.
Yeah,
I mean, you know,
whatever.
There was this English language radio from Luxembourg. And actually, they transmitted. I mean, mostly for England, but for some reason, you could catch it. You could in France. So it was like it was Radio Luxembourg in English, and it had, like, you know, the top 10, and it had it had rock and roll, but it was exactly like the kids in the film. You had to find the right frequency. Sometimes you would not get it. You know, it was really like the BBC when France was occupied by the Germans or something. You know?
Exactly. And that never goes away either. The echo of the war. This all happened, you know, long before. These kids were born, and yet you still have the is it grandmother or
Actually it was my
Nanny.
the figure is my Hungarian nanny. I mean,
Okay.
my mother was Hungarian, and
Oh, right.
we had a Hungarian nanny.
But lecturing you about how miserable
Yeah.
she had been
Yes.
in the past, and
Yeah, yeah,
how
that's-
you would
that's-
never understand, but listen forever.
Yeah, that's
about-
the soundtrack to my childhood. You know, her hearing in Hungarian
Yeah,
description
yeah,
of the
people who lived
horrors
in
of the war. Yeah, that's
Right,
how,
these
that's how I
awful,
grew up.
the horrible communists, which agreed, no doubt. But yeah, it's like their time dominates. We'll talk about that more Sunday too. But yeah, just this generational thing. It's like they're the total. We're the left behind generation. You can't really compete with that
Yes, no,
on certain levels. Nor do they let you.
no, no.
They're not
no,
going to
no.
give you any space to perpetual alienation there. And well, also feel free to ask any questions too. We'll talk forever. But.
So from your earliest work with a lot of musicians like Linklater and Jackman, music's always been like a very prevalent force in your
Yeah.
work. And I just wanted to know, like, how do you go about deciding what you put into your work?
Well, this movie was very important for me because ultimately I used scores for my early films, and I hated it. I mean, even looking back on it, I'm just not happy about because I think that because I used very good musicians, though, Gabriel Yared, even John Cale on one film, but when you commission a score, the chance that it will be perfect are very small. You have a lot. You have a chance that it will be good, adequate, whatever. But the thing, but I felt gradually uneasy with the notion of using score, because it felt like it was repeating the emotions, because I was not using it well myself, so my fault. But also it made the texture feel like a movie, whereas everything I felt I was doing making my films was try to make them not look like movies, to try to make them like I'm capturing real life, and I thought that scoring erased that dimension. So the movie I did right before Cold Water was a movie called A New Life, where I decided I did not want to use any music. I mean, it's a movie with like zero music from start to finish, and it's like, you have at the end the credits were in silence, which usually everybody hates. It's just like it's torture, but it's but it was radical, and when I made Cold Water, because music was such an essential part of the film, I realized that by using existing music, I can make my own collage, and I can, create much more complex relationships between image and like mutually beneficial use of music. I mean, in the sense that when it's later, the way I approached the music in my film was by using existing music, but by a process of trial and error. I will try 10 times stuff, extremely different stuff, until I find the one that clicks. And when it clicks, it's the moment when you realize that the music makes your images look better, and your images make the music sound better. And at that point, you realize there's something that that works. So it's been more or less my approach ever since.
Yeah, it seems to be the most realistic, because in your life you don't really have the soundtrack of your life as you're living it. If you're going to be realistic, we don't have anyone writing us a score.
Yeah,
it's like source. And as a young person, that's really your most expressive element in your life.
Yeah.
It's your only expressive.
Yeah.
I remember thinking music was the only thing that articulated what I was feeling inside.
Absolutely.
Because you're inarticulate at that age. You can't. You're reaching for something, but you can't.
But I've always tried to somehow manage to make sense of it. But in France, you have the generation of filmmakers before me who were defined by their relationship to the Nouvelle Vague, to the, you know, it's the what was hip when they were
Right, yeah.
young men. It was
Yeah.
movies. It was Godard. It was
Sure.
Truffaut, and so on and so forth. So somehow you know what their relationship to the world was defined by cinema, by modern cinema.
Right.
And when I was growing up, yes, of course, it was movies, but I would say that music had a stronger effect on me. You know, it was music. What was happening when I was growing up, when we were growing up, it was music, and it was the emotions were expressed by the music. The zeitgeist was expressed by music, because music had to do with the politics of the time, with the rebellion of the times, and in a way that movies could not compete. It was impossible. So now when I was, you know, when I make my films, they are what I'm always looking for is the energy, the emotions that music gave me, and you know, yeah.
And was it the music in this that kept it from being seen? Like, did it not have North American rights attached to it?
Well,
Like,
yeah.
Like, what was it that simple, or was it
I'll
more?
try to sum it up, because it's
Okay.
a horribly long story.
Yeah, I don't want to
but
put you through it again.
but
You had to live through it for years, but I was just
Yeah,
curious.
yeah.
You
No,
know,
no.
not to- was it-
So you know, it's
I heard
the
it was music, but I didn't.
music was one part of it. The thing is that this film was made for TV. I mean, it was financed as a 50-minute movie for TV. And my approach was, I will give you your 50 minutes for TV, but let me make within the same budget a 90-minute film,
Sure, yeah.
90-minute experimental film for cinema, which somehow. And I had never really experimented working with such a small budget and working within that kind of format. I mean, you know, I always made indie movies and so on and so forth. But at least, you know, it was a little bit better than this in terms of my budget. Yeah. So when I was shooting this film, usually when you shoot, you tell your actors to do it faster. But here, because I wanted the film to be 90 minutes, I kept on telling them, no, slower.
Yeah, we've got to spread this out.
And I think I think it's something that kind of works in the film. I mean, but I was, you know, so when I edited the 90 minutes, I thought the film would go to a few film festivals. That basically the 50-minute version would be on TV, and the longer version would go into some, you know, to some festivals. And I was happy to realize that people actually seemed to like the film, to like the long version, and the film, and all of a sudden we showed it to Gilles Jacob for the Cannes Film Festival, and he picked it up for the Cannes Film Festival. It was shown in Un Certain Regard. So all of a sudden everybody became excited, and there is this English company who bought the international rights, and they were asking for so much money when the film was shown in Cannes, and everybody said, well, you know, we need to think twice, and so. And then they folded. You know, they went bankrupt.
Of course, yeah.
So they were Polygram Classics. So they're Polygram Classics. So all of a sudden, the library of Polygram Classics, which meant 2 films, I think,
Right.
went to Polygram in London, and Polygram folded after 2 years. So all of us, and they were swallowed up by Universal. So all of a sudden, the rights for this tiny film I had made were in the Universal Film Library in Hollywood, which made no sense, because you know, they would not even answer you know, whoever. I mean, if anybody wanted to buy the films, they would not even return the emails.
You're on
or
their
whatever.
priority list, not at all. You're not even. You're at the bottom.
At the bottom of the
They
bottom.
don't even know they have you. They don't even know they own your film.
Yeah, no. And so we had to wait until finally the contract expired. So finally the contract expired, but when the contract expired, we realized we didn't have the rights to the music anymore.
Oh,
so
that
it became
expired too. No.
So it was a long story.
And that, Bob Dylan ain't cheap, man. Some of that stuff that's good. So more hands I saw earlier. Oh, in the back.
Yes, we do.
We do. Alice Cooper, who better? The ultimate teen angst, you know, rocker of all time. It could have picked any number of Alice Cooper ones, but that one's pretty great. And you know, and I also had your Uriah Heep, Easy Living.
Oh,
I had that, but I think I'm sitting here, I haven't seen Days in a long time. It was in the cut for a long time. It was in a lot of tracks, but I don't, maybe it's not in the final film. Anybody know? It's so part of that film, because I think I had it. I don't know. I don't know. It's a real film in my world, real song in my.
No, but it's true that often
Yeah.
we don't remember stuff that we left or did
Yeah.
not live in the cut. I remember
Yeah.
I was surprised to watch one of my films not long ago, and I was waiting for a scene which I liked, and I
you
realized
forgot you had cut it. Yes, I know. That's so real. It's like, oh, I got that. Yeah, for pacing. It's like that should be a test, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
That you so, right there.
I wanted to ask about the dynamite.
oh yeah,
Ooh.
I know. That's that.
For me, that was the moment where the movie kind of jumped the tracks of realism. It was like, wait, what? And so many times for the rest of the movie, the feeling was, wait, what? and I really enjoyed that. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it's I think I mean even like I had not watched this this print finalized, so actually I had not seen the film as a spectator for a very long time, and so I realize how ultimately I'm using images the way painters use colors. Because yes, I know where it comes from. I can give you these. I mean, part of the easy answer is to say that that's what I was doing as a teenager. I had with a friend. We were obsessed with blowing up stuff. And he we would do what I don't know. Some kids who do dangerous things do. Like mixing. How do you call it? Herbicide. With the.
Oh, the fertilizer.
You can create sodium
bombs.
chloride.
Yeah.
So you use if you mix it with sugar, it burns, and if you put it in the box, it blows up. Something like that. So that's what we would do.
I had a friend in Houston who had blown off his hand.
Yeah, we came close to that.
He went through the rest of his life.
We were close, and and one day he came up with dynamite, which he had bought more or that friend, which he had bought more or less the way the kid in the film. So I always wanted to put that story in a film, but ultimately I realized that it led nowhere, and so here I kind of kept it. As something that has to do with childhood. He passes it on to his little brother. He used to have fun doing that stuff, but ultimately he passes it on to the little brother, and he moves on to being a young adult because he's in love and he will follow the girl he loves, which is more serious than playing with dynamite, or maybe not.
Right.
It was chaos for nothing.
Yeah.
He didn't take any money for it. He's like, he have it.
Yes.
The film captures really just that moment before you take on the remote adult responsibility. It's that, and they were so wonderful. Your main two young actors. Where did you find that? I mean,
Virginie. I mean, Cyprien had never acted. Like all the kids. I mean, they had never seen really a camera before, except Virginie, who had been a child actress. She played in a couple. And I initially was. I mean, and I was a bit reticent to use her initially because I thought she was too beautiful for the part because she's. I think she's real, but after a while, I thought it was a very stupid reason.
Cinema and beauty go okay together.
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
And so I'm so happy when I see Virginie. That to have been able to capture the beauty of Virginie at that age. At that time, it's a blessing.
That sequence where you're just doing these long these long shots where she's cutting her hair. You realize she's cutting her hair. That's just like breathtaking. Do you get nervous there? Like, how did she feel about that?
It was an issue.
Oh, I wonder why.
It was an issue because she was nervous about cutting her hair, and especially because there's an idiot, another filmmaker who was supposed to work with her and who wanted to make a movie with her after, said, who kept on telling her, just don't cut your hair, don't cut your hair, because I need you with your long hair. The movie never happened, but it kind of made her nervous about cutting her hair. So it kind of, and especially because I wanted her, just to cut her hair more nervously. It was meaner. The way I imagined was meaner, and she ended up, just doing it a little bit more like a little girl would do it.
Still a big statement.
But yeah. No. She was scared to do it. She did it, and but. The thing is that you don't have many takes. You have to you have to get it right.
Like, I always admire
you have to get it right.
The go for it. You hope the camera doesn't jam. You hope the negative doesn't get destroyed or something, because you really get one shot at that. And he's so great too. Isn't he like the young French Keanu Reeves or something? like around a little before River's Edge. This is his.
Yes.
He's got that face. He's so good.
And he never acted after that. I mean,
I was going to ask.
No, never.
Yeah,
never. He did a couple of very small things.
Right.
But,
You're perfect for this film, and then you realize, it's just not what you're meant to be doing. It's fine.
In the intro, it was mentioned how both Days and this movie were released roughly around the same time, and both of them are set in the years when each of you were 17 years old. I mean, what was it about that time that made each of you want to revisit that moment of your life? Like what, in the world, informed both of these movies, the creation of both these movies?
Well, mine was actually, I was going from 8th grade to 9th grade. I was like 15, 16, like that. But just something new. Like we mentioned earlier, those are pretty strong, vivid memories. I think most of the intensity you have in your life emotionally happens through there up to about, mid-20s or so. If you ask an older person to go through those, a lot of their life, the strongest impressions will be from those years, for better or worse. And there's a lot of worse in there too. But yeah, so I think just artistically, you want to deal with that. You feel your life as a metaphor of some kind. What you experience, others must have, and it's worth exploring. That's how I always feel.
Yeah, and also I think it's like Rich says. I mean, it was a very powerful, strong moment, and no one had really captured it. Really, So
or it's captured so poorly so often, so hokey.
It's conventional. It's conventional, and but I think that you have to wait for the teenagers to grow up, like we did. So all of a sudden, they can somehow document their times.
You can't do it in the moment. You wouldn't be able to.
But
you can go back and be in that headspace. You don't have to forget what that felt like.
But I don't know if it's the same for you, but I have this really strange relationship to this film because we shot it in the mid-90s, in the 93, 94, and recreating the 70s. Right. But when I look back on Cold Water, I feel like I shot it in the 70s.
Yeah, so that's the goal.
It's not like it doesn't feel like a second for me, like a period piece, even if we shot it as a period piece. It's really the movie I would have made.
Had you had the filmmaking skill
I think
and financing, you would have made that film. That's a good place to start from. You want it to feel like exactly what it felt like. To be there. I think that's a good goal for any period film. But it is kind of a power of cinema. I remember as a kid seeing period films, but thinking they were shot at that time. You know, when you don't understand, that's kind of a magical, the magic of cinema moment. And time only treats that well. If you watch a 60-year-old film that was based 10 years before, 70 years, that's a blur now. You don't really get the nuance.
No.
And that happens to these films.
Yes.
Yeah, someone who's really young now would see this and maybe not.
No, the more they age, the more they are 1970s.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty soon you just lie and say, I shot it in 1970s.
The way your camera moves is beautiful, and it's something I noticed about Personal Shopper as well. And I wanted to know just what do you keep in mind when you're composing those really long moments where the camera kind of just drifts and captures
It's I don't I figure out the shots like on the morning, like it's not before the shoot or whatever. You know, I kind of do I kind of design the shots in the morning, and then I adapt on the set. I change the shots on the set. I'm never dependent to some kind of preconceived notion of how it should work. At some point, I design the shot based on the space and how the actor moves in space and how the pace of the actor and how you know. So it's like a lot of the shots here. I could never have designed them. Some are just about following, like the cigarette and it's. But no, but let's say
Were you always do that? Or
No.
early on, did you more?
No, more. I was more.
Yeah.
I
I think
mm.
when you're starting out, you think your film's going to get away from you, so
Yeah.
you're trying to control it. And if
Exactly.
you pre-design all the shots, but then you get more confident
Yeah.
in your abilities, and you can loosen up.
And
not, you know.
it's the moment when you realize, you know, this was my fifth film actually, and it's gradually when you want to control your films, you realize that things are happening on the set that you're missing, that you're not capturing. You keep on saying, no, I don't want this, I don't want this, because I want this, because this is the way I imagined it, and so on and so forth. And at some point you realize, no, what is coming to you during the process of making the film is much more interesting,
Right.
and you have to keep open and try to capture it, because it's precious. It's possibly
And
the
it's
best things you will ever
it's
get.
what the reality's telling you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see people really trying to mold that into exactly what they had in their head 6 months or a year ago. It can be a big mistake.
I haven't seen any of your work completely yet. The movie was great, but I did just finish watching The Bitter Truth of Such a Fun Film, and I saw your name after I was reading an article about it or something. I was just wondering, maybe besides Fassbender, were there any other filmmakers during that particular moment that you felt?
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned Petra van Kant, I suppose. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but it's because when I made Clouds of Sils Maria, which is a movie I made a couple of years back, the play within the film is like an homage to Fassbinder and specifically to Bitter Tears of Petra van Kant. But I wrote my own version of Petra van Kant, to put it that way. But it's, you know, I think that I watch a lot of movies. I love movies, and I could discuss movies all night. But ultimately, I think that when you're dealing with things that, in this specific film, it's memory. It's not movies.
Yeah.
It's memory. It's emotions. It's nature. You know. It's Allen Ginsberg. It's reading Allen Ginsberg's poem in the woods at night, or some things you would do as a teenager, but not so much late after that. But
beautiful
of
youth. Yeah,
that's the kind of emotions that ultimately generate however you shoot your film in the end.
Did Fassbinder make? I'm trying to think. Fassbinder teenage movies.
Not really. I don't think so.
Jailbait.
Oh.
They're a little older than teens, though. They're in their 20s. They're a bunch of 20s losers. But but no, Jailbait with Eva Matei. She's a teenage girl.
I haven't seen it.
It's what's it also called? Bullweiser? Or you ever seen that one? It's anyway.
Budweiser I've seen, but
At the end, he goes to prison. She's pregnant, and it's one of those tragic, screwed up.
No, this one, if I,
Eva
no, actually there were two movies that I knew and somehow not were some kind of distant inspiration. One is Mouchette by Robert Bresson, and the other one is Monica by Ingmar Bergman.
Yeah. Monica, that's well, you're doing a pretty good job. Here is Harriet Anderson. She's given Harriet a run for her money in the young beauty category.
I understand this was made as like part of a series by different directors. And so I'm just kind of wondering, like, what was the nature of
Well,
creation? Like, was it like choose a time and make a film set at that time? Or?
it was make a movie about your teenage years centered on the music you were listening to, centered on a party scene. But the party scene can be 2 minutes, can be 3 minutes, and I decided to be extremely serious, and I made,
you overachieved.
I
in the
overachieved.
parties, yeah.
But actually the series is really good. I mean, because it generated a lot of very good films. I mean, including The Wild Reeds by André Téchiné, including a movie by Cédric Kahn called Trop de Bonheur, a movie by Chantal Ackerman. There's a movie by Claire Denis. There's, it's pretty.
Did anyone else expand to feature?
Cédric, I mean, Téchiné did. Téchiné did. Cédric Kahn did. And Patricia Mazui. She did a pretty good. I mean, she was the first to shoot her segment, and it was pretty good, called Travolta and I.
Okay, that's a good. Those should be available in a box set.
Yeah.
Let's get Criterion on that.
Yeah. No, actually, they should. Totally.
It sounds like it.
Absolutely.
I wish they would give that assignment here. What a great idea that you let a bunch of filmmakers and give them one little commonality and just see the vast different.
And the thing, it was a kind of it was a series for TV, but filmmaker driven. So in the sense that I mean, there was nothing more than that. I mean, so be autobiographical. What best
Only
commission
in
could you
Europe
get?
would that happen? They make something.
In both the films, there were very strong images, like flames and fire. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, I know.
It's powerful.
Yeah, it's youth, fire, consuming, loss. I don't know. You associate youth to something that burns away. And I remember when we were editing this film with my editor Luc Barnier, there is this scene when the camera tilts up on the flames, and he wanted to cut it, and I kept on telling me, no, keep it going. It's the end of youth. It's the end of youth. I don't want it to finish.
I was gonna say, because only in youth do you have that patience to remember how long you would stare at a fire. It just really spoke to you, like the power, the destruction, and the energy of it, or something. I remember it's something that forceful kind of has a pull on you. So.
Comparing the two films again, I was curious. I watched Something in the Air for the first time at the Stuart screening, and I was immediately struck by the sort of philosophical sophistication, but also emotional sophistication of the young characters. And contrasting that with what felt like the emotions of the teens in cold water, like they were really struggling to have any agency at all.
Yeah, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle.
I was just curious, just like in contrasting the relationship and the conversations between the two heels and their father. Like if you could speak to that at all, was it a conscious decision on the part of
No. Yeah. I mean, it's. I think that I wanted to. When I made Cold Water, it was very intuitive. It was very physical and intuitive, and it deals with love. I mean, it deals with love, essentially, but as connected to. To cold, to water, to fire, it's very primitive in terms of the world where it is happening. It's a very primordial world, and whereas Something in the Air gives justice to the intellectual mood of the times. You know, I think that when I was Gilles' age, and our generation were very sophisticated in terms of politics, of knowledge of history as connected to politics, and it was extremely ideological. We were reading a lot of abstract philosophy and so on and so forth. It was just part of the culture, kids, and it's something that's kind of gone, but it was very present. So I suppose that I wanted to. When I made something in the air, I wanted that dimension to be present. You know, like would be. It's something in the air in a certain way is the autobiography of a would-be painter, which means also that it includes thinking about art theory. You know, when you are an aspiring artist, filmmaker even more so, you want to be aware of the debate of history, of where you fit in, how you can, you know, just make sense of what has been coming before you, and make sense of where it's heading. So there is always this kind of intellectual dimension which usually movies avoid because it's supposed to be boring or something. But I don't think it's boring. I think it's very exciting, actually.
That's what I find so exhilarating about something in the air. That, to me, that's just, that when you're young, you actually can. You can go in a very short time from this to that.
Yeah, yes.
It's just when your life can just and come into focus and purpose of being that activism, you know, it's a different, you can be a very different person rather quickly, especially at that age. So. There was a couple more hands before we wrap up. Anybody have questions? Well, anyway, it's just been, so we're going to interview around Sunday at 12:30, I believe.
Yes.
We're
I
in
think so,
conversation.
yeah.
We'll talk about the as much as we can. We have the whole career here. I want to get into a lot of the other films, and we'll take questions there too. But it's just, this was such a treat. I'm so proud that we did this little re-premiere here at our theater. It means so much to us.
Oh, yeah, I'm so
And
happy.
it'll be great that this film can be seen everywhere now with your others, and look forward to that and in the additional films here. So I want to thank you all for coming, and really thank you for being here. It's really great.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.